Hello, Night Nation. Trace Trelko here. Welcome into the Sons of UCF Live. Joining me, UCF Mike and Adam, who just flew in, and boy, are his arms tired. But
No, but fun fact, at the airport, as I got off my plane at 6:18 this afternoon in Jacksonville, I ran into Tony Dungy.
Really?
Wow.
Yeah, fun fact, Tony Dungy was there.
Was he low energy, Tony?
He did actually look quite tired. I'm not gonna lie to you. He was slumped in a chair. He sweats on a hat, and I was like, "Hey, you're Tony Dungy," and he was like, "Hey, nice to meet you," and then
Yes,
just kept it moving.
I'm glad we started the NFL talk right at the top of the show. That's what I came here for. The Sons of the New York Football Giants podcast. Let's get it started, baby. Big game on Saturday night.
And that concludes our Giants coverage.
I'm sure we'll weave this in and talk about it throughout the show, Mike. But boom, and I'm not talking about somebody in the transfer portal coming to UCF or Gus's latest recruit or the, it's not going to come out Big 12 schedule. I'm talking about cannons, Adam and Mike. Cannons. Reports indicate UCF Army, ROTC, bringing back the cannons that were a fixture back in the Citrus Bowl days. They will be in the bounce house apparently this fall. I asked on Twitter, what do you think? Boom or misfire? More than 2/3 of respondents said boom. Good, bringing it back. Our buddy Paul at GoKnights_Paul J. Are you excited for the cannon to come back? Do you remember how deafening it was? Good thing or bad thing?
I'm indifferent to it. I'm more concerned about logistics. It's a much
Where are they
smaller.
putting this thing?
It's a much smaller field with field cabanas on both sides now. I don't want a situation where we have some sort of a catastrophic event. Cannons are fine if it works. It's really, really loud though. I don't know that we need it. It's not like we were missing something and it's like, oh, it's cannons. If they're there and they go off, I'm sure I'll do the boom in the background too. But I could have gone through life without having a cannon on the field. So I'm all right.
They could have the cannon just outside the stadium. You're still going to hear it perfectly fine, right? So I don't know if that's the issue.
Where the practice fields are, where they light the fireworks up.
Right. So, I mean, yeah, they were cool back then in the Citrus Bowl days. I was fine with it. But the most iconic boom or cannon fire I've ever heard during a UCF game wasn't even a home game. It was the East Carolina game with the Hale Perriman. They set off the cannon after we had scored the touchdown. Because I guess that those things take a couple of minutes to actually go off, right? So they thought the game was over, and then boom, touchdown UCF.
I think Dolly Drama has summed it up perfectly. Nothing says the future of college football like 13th century artillery.
So we're going to have cannons going off and launches on the Space Coast following games as we welcome in Red Raiders and Longhorns, maybe. Depending on
if we ever get a schedule, I don't. Maybe.
So Terry Modger, by the way, popped off on Twitter as he's apt to do. He's interesting a follow and then responds to people in real time, saying it was coming out Tuesday. Baylor's AD on that 365 show said, "Nah, not coming out on Tuesday. More like the end of the month, early February. So maybe we'll get a early, February 1 midweek, and then we'll have some fodder to talk about on our Thursday, February 2nd show."
Yeah, it wouldn't hurt. At this point, I just assume they're going to announce it like week after week, right? Like week 1 this week, Baylor's coming to town. We're just going to find out like 7 days beforehand at this rate. I can only hope or assume there's some gymnastics going on with Texas and Oklahoma and what to do with them long term. So unless they're really just trying to get the build up going, Trace, new conference, and they're going to roll this thing out in some sort of a really maybe with artillery as well, cannons, some sort of really extravagant manner. But I'd love a good schedule at this point.
I would actually enjoy not knowing who the team was until the very week. I know it sucks for travel, but I'm not planning on going to any of these podunk towns anyway. But remember back in the COVID year, some of these games got rescheduled and mixed around the week before. I think it'd be exciting. You didn't know who you played next week, and then all of a sudden Oklahoma's coming to town.
I'm looking forward to Lubbock on the schedule, Mike. I want to go to Prairie Dog Town with you, then a brewery afterwards. So don't say no to that, is all I'm saying. Of course, we're talking about cannons coming after scores. No matter where the cannons are located, UCF's going to need to score. And the question will be, of course, as we get into spring camp and several weeks, it'll be who's going to be the quarterback. And I asked, because in relationship to our guest that'll be coming up soon, what's your final grade of UCF quarterbacks in 2022? And overwhelming 60% with the C. And I debated the C or the B. And B minus, I don't know. I had to talk myself into a B.
First off, A+ transition from cannons to cannons of arms for a quarterback. That is top notch. That's why you're the best in the business, Trace. Yeah, I was on that BC line as well. I think you think about the games we lost, particularly Navy. We did not have great quarterback play. Some of the games we won, we had some pretty good quarterback play. So I think that portends to a lot of inconsistency. When I think inconsistency, I think C. So I went with a C, just because I feel like there's a lot of inconsistency. We didn't see it, game after game. We saw some good plays, some bad plays. This quarterback played well, then he didn't play well. So give me a C as my overall grade.
Mike, who are these 3% that said, hey, if you're watching right now, drop a comment. Let us know why you gave an A. Maybe that's a Mikey Keene grade curve there. But Mike, where are you on this?
Yeah, it's got to be around C+ area. The fact that the question is QBs is really all you need to know about the whole season, that we had so many quarterbacks play. We had 3 guys play in meaningful games, including the championship game. We had a freshman that hadn't played all season. Well, no meaningful games during the regular season. So the fact that we didn't really settle on a quarterback all year kind of takes the grade down a notch or two. It could have been an A if somebody had taken reins throughout the whole year and been the starter all year, but that wasn't the case.
And here we are as January's coming to a close, and by March-ish time frame we'll be into spring camp, and it seems like that whole 2022 theme, that Gus kept tamping down. There's not going to be a quarterback controversy, and yet it lingered from spring into preseason camp throughout the season, and it feels like it's going to be the dominant storyline, with the backdrop that we're just a couple of weeks away from the start of the UCF baseball season, and John Rice Plumlee expected to be a fixture for the baseball Knights.
Yeah, I mean, if you're sick of quarterback talk from last year, I got bad news. I don't think it's going away anytime soon. And I do think the JRP baseball wrinkle will continue to add some fuel to that fire. I think, obviously, there were some fans who probably want to see a bit of a change offensively. Darren Hinshaw comes in. What system does he run? Which quarterback fits it best? I think that's the part I'm unclear on. Again, no disrespect to Darren Hinshaw. I don't know what his system looks like to sort of know which quarterback maybe is best positioned to run it. So I think that's going to be a big unknown throughout the entire offseason. But if anybody here was tired of QB talk, I think you are in for a long offseason.
And is Gus going to allow Hinshaw to make that decision? I mean, how much freedom is he giving him there? Does Gus say, JRP is my guy, and make it work with him? Or is Hinshaw tells him, hey, my offense runs better under Castellanos or under McLean. We got to start that guy.
Does it surprise you 2 weeks or so in to Darren Hinshaw that there's been no boom of a transfer that he's brought in from any of his previous stops? No notice, normally when you bring in a new coach, maybe you get somebody. You saw what happened when T. Will went to Arkansas. He took a guy or two with him. So does that surprise you at this point?
Not really, because if you look at his lineage, he spent last year at UAB 1 season. I don't know how much he kind of grew close. He didn't recruit a lot of those kids because he got hired on late because UAB's coaching situation changed. The year before that, he was with us, so he's not re-recruiting his own guys. And I think he was out of football for maybe a year or 2 seasons between Kentucky and us. So I don't know there was a really deep pool of folks he could have brought in. So I'm not super surprised that he's not finding somebody because, I don't know how much he was able to connect with the UAB kids. And maybe they aren't kids that we need or want. I don't know.
That, and if you follow Twitter or the message boards, it's because he needs to fix his wardrobe. Maybe if he had a better fitting outfit on these recruiting trips, he may have convinced another quarterback to come by.
We were first on that story. I'd like to point out we were first on that story. I'm not seeing the credit out there, but we were first.
I hope Tyson doesn't tell Darren that the Sons of UCF were first on that story. I'd hate to ask Darren Hinshaw a question and him glare at me from his oversized suit. We're talking about quarterbacks this week in large part because our first guest included me on a post on Twitter in mentioning of Thomas Castellanos, who he's working with. Let's welcome in Baylen Carrillo. He's the founder of Be True Quarterback Training. Baylen, thanks for joining us on Sons of UCF Live.
Yeah, thank you for having me, man. Anything to promote kids and anything like that and that nature, I'm all about. So I appreciate what you guys do and the conversations that you guys have on a weekly basis about these guys and promoting these guys, whether it's good or bad. It does come with the territory, but I do appreciate you having me on here.
Well, before we talk a little bit more about UCF quarterbacks, how about a little bit about you? What do you bring to Be True Quarterback Training? What's your background? You've played college, you played a little professional ball. Talk a little bit about your background.
Yeah, so funny story. I'm actually the rival of UCF, right? So my dad played at UCF in 88, 89. I ended up going the opposite route down I-4. I played at USF in 2011 and 12 under Skip Holtz. Unfortunately, UCF never really recruited me, so I had to go where my options were, and that was the best option at the time. And so I love my experiences at USF. And then after the spring of my redshirt freshman year, I ended up transferring to Weber International, where I finished 2 years there in 2014 in December. And then I went straight into training quarterbacks in January of 2015. And then through that process, I was able to throw at Florida State's Pro Day. Did a really good job. Only missed 2 throws the entire day. I was the only quarterback to throw. And through that experience, I was able to connect with some professional teams. And I played 3.5 years of arena football, most notably in 2019 with the Orlando Predators. So that's my hometown team. So that was a really cool experience. But there's nothing like playing outdoors. It's a completely different football game. And it really makes you appreciate that. But my passion is quarterback training. I've coached in Elite 11 for 5 years. I've trained over 250 quarterbacks nationwide. Just alone this year, I've trained 73 Central Florida quarterbacks, including pretty much high school all the way down to 5 years old. I've trained over 31 Division I quarterbacks. I've trained over 12 NAI quarterbacks. I've trained over 16 Division II and Division III quarterbacks. I have 5 JUCO quarterbacks currently in there. So I've trained a lot. I've been around the game a lot. I have my own camp business where I travel all across the country, put on camps in Charlotte, Miami, Dallas, Texas. And I've connected with some big names like Kurt Warner, Quincy Carter is one of my guys, Kevin Olson, Greg Olson. So, I've been blessed enough to have made a big network in the quarterback training industry. And of course, I train a lot of the local kids here at UCF. And so I've trained Tim McLean when he was growing up, and he went to USF first, and now he's at UCF. I trained him in 8th grade. Also, John Rice Plumley, as soon as he transferred over here, I was able to connect with him and work him out right before the season. And then Thomas had reached out to me actually last summer as well, but he was going through some stuff. But now he recently reconnected with me, and I got some working with him recently, and we're continuing to do that path. Also, I've trained Mackenzie Milton, who was at UCF right in the transition of going to Florida State. So I've been staying local, especially with the UCF guys. I have a pretty good connection there. And now Coach Henshaw's there. He offered one of my quarterbacks as a freshman when he was at UAB. His name's Noah Grubbs. So I've kind of connected with him through that process. So I'm hoping to build a good relationship to keep those UCF quarterbacks happy here training in the offseason.
All right, you've established the resume. You mentioned John Rice Plumley. Let's talk about him a little bit. How do you evaluate his first season at UCF and when you were training him and what you saw over the course of the 2022 season?
Yeah, so I really liked his development. Honestly, he's just a special talent. Of course, he played in the SEC and Ole Miss, had really good success early on, was actually a freshman All-American. And then, it just kind of, I feel like he reached a pinnacle where he felt like he could just do what he does. And then when he gets to UCF, mentally, you think you're coming from the SEC, the game's a lot easier, but the pace is a little different here in Florida. The talent is obviously different. And so I think that it got really too fast for him. And we saw some flashes of his special talent, in the game. He threw 7 touchdowns or 7 total counted touchdowns. I feel like he could have broke the record instead of tied it. That one hurt me a little bit watching that. But he did show flashes that he can be the guy, and Gus Malzahn recruited him heavy when he was at Auburn before he committed to Ole Miss. So that connection obviously is why Gus Malzahn stuck with him throughout the year, and Mikey Keene kind of got brushed to the side and won some pretty big gains. But at the end of the day, John Rice is his guy, and that just shows you loyalty from the head coach to where he is with his quarterback group. And when he finally makes the decision on who the guy is, he's obviously going to ride or die through it, even through injury or what have you, or bad performances. And again, we saw flashes of greatness with John Rice. When I trained him, he obviously is working on timing in the pocket and stuff like that because he's so dynamic. His first instincts to get out of the pocket and use his legs, which is his best attribute, to be honest. But just trying to get him feel more comfortable in the pocket to stand there and not have to break, use his legs so much so he can be fresh in all 4 quarters. That's something that obviously he was working on in the offseason and going into the season. And hopefully now going into the offseason, going into his senior year, because he is coming back, working on those things so that he's more polished, especially going into a big-time Power 5 conference. So, again, he's used to playing in that type of atmosphere. But, I just would love to see more of the consistency part of it. But the kid is special, and he did show flashes of that. And UCF fans should be excited that John Rice is coming back.
Baylen, if there was anybody or any knock, I guess, on John Rice in year one from a throwing perspective, there are kind of 2 pieces, right? Accuracy at times, and then really didn't take a lot of touch off the ball. It sounds like he throws the fastball at all times. Are those things that as a trainer, as a coach, you can kind of teach out of somebody? How can John Rice continue to work on his accuracy or develop that part of his game?
Yeah, well, the accuracy is coming from the base. So if you used to have a good base, you're going to have a good accurate ball. And sometimes, again, when you're so dynamic with your feet, you want to throw off platform all the time. You're not going to be so accurate when you're outside the pocket. So really focusing on being, at base, underneath your shoulders, just staying comfortable and tall when delivering the ball and making sure you're aligned with your hip and your shoulder. I think that's what's going to help John Rice continue to develop in that aspect, because at the end of the day, he does some stuff that you can't really teach, and that's throwing off platform stuff and running the ball and stuff like that. But just getting him more comfortable in the pocket to get really to platform and not throwing flat footed or, across the body all the time or trying to slash or trying to make big time throws, not being comfortable in the pocket. I think that's something that is going to help him with his accuracy. But again, he has some tangibles that, most quarterback coaches, especially myself, can't teach. And he's just a God-given ability. He's just a good talent.
How much does his playing baseball impact that, right? Obviously, the baseball throw is much different than a football throw. How much does that impact, or when you worked with him, how much did you kind of have to work through the baseball mentality to the football mentality?
I'm so glad you brought that up. That is the biggest, I would say, for young kids and parents watching, make sure when your son wants to play quarterback that he is focused solely on that. Baseball can ruin a lot of habits. And so you do see that the transition from the baseball throw to the football throw. I do think that John Rice does in that aspect. I wouldn't say struggle with it, but I think he goes back to what he's more comfortable with, which is a baseball throw. But it is completely different when you're throwing the football. It's much more shorter, much more quick release, using more hip action instead of the pushing off the back foot. You're using more torque in your hips. So I think the only thing that we can take from baseball when it comes to the quarterback position is hitting. I think that that's a really good thing to do. Go to the batting cages as much as you want, but as far as throwing the ball and trying to be a pitcher, I think that's going to hurt quarterbacks, not just John Rice, but quarterbacks in general. And I try to tell parents that I train at young kids, stay away from being the pitcher or, trying to throw 1,000 balls a day, because at the end of the day, it is a different throw and you could go back to your bad habits when releasing the ball. And yeah, John Rice, I would say, when I first started training him right before the season, you could tell that it is kind of a baseball throw in a way. Sometimes he likes to drop it, but then there's other times where it's very clean and fluid and very quick. So I did see a good progression throughout the year in his development in throwing the ball. Obviously, you're throwing the football for 8 months straight or 6 months straight, you're going to start to see the difference, and it's going to come out a lot more nicer. But now the transition going right back into baseball and then going right back into spring football, I think that's a hard transition, and not too many people can do that in a high level. So it is going to be interesting to see if John Rice still continues to throw the football during baseball season, which I think is a very good idea. But then again, you have the issue of maybe you're throwing your arm out or overworking your shoulder, your elbow, and then it causes other problems throughout the year. So I just think, man, if it was up to me and you're going back for your senior year, in my opinion, I mean, of course, the guy's a freak athlete and he might make a lot of money playing baseball. But if you're really taking it serious, which my conversations with John is his passion is football, you might want to put the baseball bat probably for the rest of this year down and really focus on your quarterback development so that you are the most polished quarterback that you can be in this type of conference to give yourself a shot in the NFL. So I think that's a key, and it's going to be interesting to see again, what is he going to do to prepare himself to be, still stay polished and fluid in his throwing motion where he's throwing a baseball for the next 4 months.
You mentioned you started training Tommy Castellanos now. We only saw glimpses of him in a couple games last year. What part of his game do you think right now needs the most improvement?
Accuracy. I think accuracy is probably going to be the most what we're going to focus on. I think he's got such a gifted arm. I think he's got the best arm in the room, other than probably Tim McLean, who I've worked with. Tim McLean's arm talent is freakishly, like, it's just freak. But Thomas, he's just uniquely, he's got great mechanics. I think that's one of the coolest things about Thomas is he's very fluid and he's very consistent in his throwing motion, and he's always at platform and in base. So that's really good when you're talking about a quarterback. But the thing with him is he's just got such a strong arm that he needs to learn how to control it. Sometimes, my first throw ever in my training, I was doing some footwork stuff and he threw a hitch and he launched it. Like, he just let it rip and it popped off his hand nice, but again, not accurate football. So learning how to control that arm and really make great throws, whether that's a 10-yard out, a 5-yard hitch, or seam down the middle, or an RPO bang 8, whatever the case may be, he needs to learn consistency and control of the football. And I think once he does that, which he will, he's going to do that because he's such a smart kid. And me throwing a lot of stuff at him, a lot of the stuff that we did in my first training, he never even seen before, ever did before. Kind of like same thing with John Rice. I'm very big on hip explosion. I'm very big on off-platform, in-platform stuff, creating different angles to be comfortable when throwing the ball inside and outside the pocket. And again, I was doing a lot of stuff with him that he's never experienced. So I could tell that he registers a lot of things fast and processes things fast, which is really going to help him down the line when you're talking about considering being the starting quarterback at UCF. But yeah, if I had to work on something consistently, it's just learning how to control the power of his arm.
I want to ask, go back to baseball and ask a question that came in from James, especially with Darren Hinshaw new in as offensive coordinator, and you don't know what sort of system he's going to bring. James is asking, how much do you think JRP pursuing baseball hurts his QB1 chances? You alluded to it'd be best if he could focus in on the football. How do you balance both of these out, especially when you have a new offensive coordinator coming in after the inconsistent season that he had in 2022, if he wants to be serious here about seizing QB1?
Yeah. Again, I love Derek Henshaw. You know what the best part about Henshaw is? The best part about him is I know him based off my relationship with the Kruzicks, Garrett Kruzik. His dad. He coached with his dad back when he was the head coach at UCF. So learning a little bit about Henshaw before he even got there, and then my dealings with Noah Grubbs, who he loves, he's a fanatic about, who offered him as an 8th grader when he was at UAB. He really geared towards his offense to the strengths of the quarterback, and that's very special. That's something that a lot of coaches can do. They either have their system and it works or it doesn't. But with Henshaw, whatever the strengths are, like for instance, for John Rice, he is definitely an RPO kid. He loves to throw in space and he loves to be throwing on the run. So he's going to probably do more of that, more play action, more bootleg, more, outside the pocket, sprint rollout, stuff like that. That's going to get John Rice more comfortable with his arm and use the same type of concepts, just except with the line adjustments and the protections, it's going to, equivalent to what works for John Rice Plumlee, whatever the case may be. Or if it's another quarterback like Thomas, he's kind of the same deal, but he can actually throw inside the pocket. So what are we going to do to create space and lanes for Thomas? Or Tim McLean, he can do both. He can really do things on the run and he can do things in the pocket. So that's the one thing that I love about Henshaw and what he does for quarterbacks is he's developed to the strength of the quarterback, not necessarily what he believes is the best way to do it. So Henshaw is a great hire. I know I did hear you guys were talking a little bit about his control of the offense. Gus Malzone has officially, from word, I know a lot of people don't have inside sources, but I've heard a lot of things within the program that he is actually giving everything to Henshaw. So Henshaw will actually be calling plays this year. He will be developing the quarterbacks. Gus Malzone is going to start acting like a head coach, which is going to be hard for him because, as we know, he wants to be in control. It's just face what it is. I had a good relationship with Coach Lindsey, Chip Lindsey, and he had no control, which is why he left in a year and he went to UNC. So, Gus Malzone is tough to work with. He's phenomenal at what he does. He's obviously a winner. But from what I've heard and the sources that I've heard from, Henshaw is going to be the guy that's going to be controlling the offense and what goes on. So, again, the best thing that you guys can get excited about is the fact that Henshaw will always gear towards the strength of the quarterback no matter who he has. So it's going to be a lot more successful when you see it. And if you see his numbers, that's kind of the lesser programs. He is putting up numbers and consistent numbers, and that's what you want. So Henshaw is a phenomenal hire. He's back home. He's obviously alumni. He's going to put everything he has into this program, and he recruits really well. And I know he's excited with the quarterback room. In my opinion, if you really break down and see the quarterbacks that UCF has right now in that room, and with the addition of Dylan coming in, another kid that I'm going to be training, I'm telling you what, the UCF has probably one of the best quarterback rooms in the entire country. If you really look at who they have and the type of talent that they have, those guys can be starting for any program across America, and yet they're all sitting in that same QB room. So I'm very excited to see what Henshaw does with those guys, regardless if it's baseball or not. Again, he's going to gear it towards the strength of the quarterback.
We're talking a lot, obviously, about on the field and sort of the athletic side of things, but take us to the mental side for a second, right? Thomas is obviously a younger quarterback, JRP not as experienced. What kind of things do you do as a trainer to kind of teach to the mental side? When to take the check down, when to get out of the pocket, how to read the field? What are some things or some things you've seen from those guys, kind of on the mental side of being a quarterback?
Yeah, so for the mental side, again, it goes into the training, so your development of your footwork. So your footwork goes based off timing, based off coverage. So first of all, we go over pre-snap reads all the time. Why do you throw the check down? Why are you throwing here? What is your read keys? Are you looking at the back? Are you looking at the safeties? Are you looking at alignment of corners? So we do all that stuff through the drills that I work, so that your feet work are always in sync with your throw to whatever it is, whether you are throwing the RPO, the check down, the bubble route, the screen, or whatever the case may be. It all depends on the coverage, but I'm very big on pre-snap read process, learning all 4 things, from the corner alignment to safety depth to the front to the linebacker, if he's covering the slot or not. Like, all those little details all should happen within 3 or 4 seconds of when a quarterback goes to the line of scrimmage. So by that time, he should know how he's going through his progressions from 2 to 3 to check down. So that's all through footwork. That's all through, obviously the pre-snap read process is understanding coverages. Not a lot of quarterbacks know that. But through my training, I do have an 8-week course that I go straight, just classroom work stuff, nothing field related. But then once we learn the classroom stuff, we put it on the field and say, hey, this is how the footwork looks if you're going to check down to cover 2 on the slant, or you're going to go cover 3. We're going to look deep. We're going to look dig. Now we're coming back down to the flat. So anything like that is just making sure your footwork is in sync. And I'm going to be honest with you, Tim McLean and Thomas are going to do really well in that aspect. As far as, again, that's all comfortable in the pocket, and those guys are very comfortable in the pocket. John Rice, again, he's learning that. He's not. If we really look at Ole Miss, they used a lot of his feet work, and same thing with UCF. He did a lot of good things on the run or outside of the pocket. That's really good. That's his strength. But at the end of the day, when you're talking about coverages and understanding the game of football from an X's and O standpoint, and why you're throwing to where you're throwing, you're gonna have to learn that from the pocket, because it's easy to get out of the pocket, and then now you're just kind of playing free for all, like backyard football. Get open, right? Guys deep, he comes forward. If the guy's forward, he goes deep. So, and then you just make the throw, and if it's accurate, it's probably a big play. But if you're in the pocket, you got to know your progressions. You got to know understanding your pre-snap read processes, how we can break down from safety to the first, second to third levels. And then if you have to come to the check down, or if you have to use your feet, use your feet. I believe that if you can run 70 yards in a football game as a quarterback, whether you're a dual threat or you're a pocket guy, you're putting yourself in a good chance, because at the end of the day, you're creating more opportunities and you're moving the ball down the field. So there's a lot to it, but definitely understanding. You have to understand coverages. If you don't, you're not going to be successful in college. A lot of kids can get away with it, big arms and high school, but when you get to college, you have to understand your why and why you're throwing this football and where you're looking at, where's your read keys, and then obviously making the throw accurately.
All right, the NFL playoffs are down to the final 8 teams right now. In your expert opinion, which of those 8 quarterbacks are playing the best right now, and why is it Daniel Jones?
Daniel Jones was actually on one of my virtual schools, which is really cool, and he helped break down some coverage and stuff for the guys that I was training. So that was pretty cool, and I got to meet him through Greg Olson, who got to work with him when he was in Charlotte. So, no, Daniel Jones is a special talent. He's playing out of this world. But in my opinion, honestly, the best quarterback playing right now is probably Joe Burrow. He's just consistent, and I just love what Cincinnati's been doing recently. And then you got Josh Allen out there, who didn't really have such a spectacular second half against the Dolphins. He started off pretty hot, but whatever, they have their number for whatever the reason defensively. But I just think that Joe Burrow right now is playing the best. We can all argue Purdy is too as well, but in my opinion, you could put any quarterback in that defense and you're going to win a lot of football games. So it's not really what he's doing. He's just not losing the game and not turning the ball over. So if he continues to do that, 49ers are a scary football team. But again, when you're talking about the straight quarterback play, making tough throws, going through your progressions, actually creating space and lanes, I think Joe Burrow, and I love what I saw in Daniel Jones. I'm not going to take away credit for him. Last week was phenomenal to watch. And then Dak Prescott did some pretty impressive things as well. But consistently, I like Joe Burrow, and they're going to make a case. In my opinion, I think it's going to be the 49ers and the Bengals in the Super Bowl.
Baylen, let's wrap up with this. A quick question. Do you end up getting in alignment with UCF on the training? Are you on the same page with what a Hinshaw, Coach Malzahn wants to do, so you're not doing something contradictory?
Yeah, and that's what I was going back to Chip Lindsey. I built a really good relationship with Chip Lindsey, which is how I got connected with John Rice Plumlee, and then obviously Thomas earlier in the season. But yeah, so again, building the relationship with Hinshaw, I'm going to understand what he wants to work on in the offseason, and whenever they are training with me, what they obviously are going to focus on, or what my trainers are going to focus on to help strengthen what they need to work on outside of just what they're going to do on Monday through Friday. But the one thing that I did know with Gus Malzahn being so full control of the offense, they didn't really have a lot of indie periods last year, and that really hurt the quarterback group. And I think that's very important. And so you got to make sure your quarterbacks are always polished. So having those relationships with Chip Lindsey or now with Hinshaw, that's going to be very important when it comes to offseason work with Thomas and John Rice Plumlee and even Tim McLean, and Dylan coming up. So I think it's very important because now we're not just wasting time going through different motions or whatever the case may be, or going through workout. Now we're actually specializing what they need to really work on to help them, compete and do good on Saturdays consistently. But at the end of the day, I'm a believer in what I'm doing in my training anyways, regardless if I talk to these guys or not. I know what I can see from the first 5 minutes of a workout, what we're going to need to work on, or I can just watch the tape. But at the end of the day, it does help when I do build these relationships with these coaches. And I am looking forward to really starting this thing up with Coach Hinshaw, because I know how great of a quarterback coach he is and what he does for this quarterback. So I'm really excited about it. I'm excited about Thomas. I'm excited about JPR. I'm excited about everybody in that quarterback room. Tim McClain, who was at USF. I mean, he's a legit starter. He's got, 11, 12 games under his belt as a starter, including spring. I mean, the kid is a freak athlete. So don't be surprised if he starts to make some waves in that quarterback room from going into the spring, because that's really going to showcase his talent and his abilities. And then, of course, you have Dylan coming up from Cardinal Gibbons. So, again, a loaded quarterback room. I would like to, see Mikey Keene stick it out, but at the end of the day, he did what's best for him. But John Rice Plumlee should be excited about, because he shows flashes of it. And if he can be consistent, he's a dang good quarterback. And then Thomas, he's probably got the biggest upside because he can do it all, and he's a fast processor, which is very important at the quarterback position. So he's going to pick up things fast. So once he becomes the guy and gets consistent reps in practice, I think that's also hurt him when he was going into the championship game. Also, when I was talking to him, his mindset was, he was going to redshirt, and then sure enough, he had to blow it in the championship game. And that kind of really that hurt him in a sense, because he had a whole year pretty much being free, and now he blew it. So now he doesn't have his red shirt. So that really hurt. But if he just has a whole year of getting the first team reps, or at least competing for that, you're going to see a tremendous talent take over the quarterback position if Thomas were to win the job outright. And then you have Tim McClain, again, I just mentioned, has really, his starting experience. Actually, one of his best games was against UCF, and they almost pulled that crazy upset. And then you have Dylan, who's got time, but they're probably going to redshirt him. So a lot of good stuff, exciting stuff that you guys are listening to, and the listeners and you guys that do this show. And, the quarterback room is exciting stuff for UCF football.
All right, put you on the spot. Way too early. JRP, does he emerge as QB1?
Yeah, he definitely goes in at quarterback one. He doesn't make a decision like, coming back his senior year unless he knows he's had a good conversation with Gus Malzahn. And if we are not blind to what we saw this year, especially with games like Cincinnati and in games like USF.
All right, that may be the end of our interview with Baylen Carrillo. We've lost Baylen. All right,
There you go. There you go. No, there you go.
All right, Baylen, we'll let you go. We'll let you go. You said JRP going to emerge there as QB1. We appreciate it, Baylen Carrillo, founder, Be True Quarterback Training. Thanks for being with us on Suns Live.
No doubt, man. Hey, God bless, guys. Go Knights, and keep doing what you guys do, man. I appreciate your guys' time tonight too as well. And like I said, we look forward to a great season.
All right, thanks much,
Awesome.
Baylen.
Thanks, Baylen.
All right, guys, what's your big takeaway here? It seems as if though he shares that same concern. How can JRP really seize the moment and take this job if he's splitting his time with baseball?
I mean, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but my paraphrase of what he said was basically, kid, if you want to be QB1, you may want to put down the baseball and play quarterback. So it sounds like he's got some concerns about what that looks like. I'm reading between the lines on two other things. Sounds like he really likes Timmy McClain. And thinks he has a lot to offer. We haven't seen much of Timmy McClain. Obviously, I don't think much of us watched the dreadful cow season, so we probably haven't seen a lot of him play. But obviously, Baylen's pretty high on that. A couple of other nuggets about Hinshaw having full control of the offense is interesting as well. So I thought it's as somebody who is his role, his job is to assess quarterbacks, give them advice and counsel and training and coaching to basically tell a potential D1 starting quarterback you should put down the baseball. I think that's pretty telling.
He pretty much told me Timmy McClain is the best quarterback we have. He said it a couple times. Now, is that because he's known the kid since 8th grade? Like you said, he's trained them for the last 5-6 years. Maybe that's something to do with it. But I think he's being honest and saying he can do everything. He can do everything on the run. He can do it from the pocket. And he's got experience himself. Everybody forgets that he already was a starter for a full year.
Well, he also mentioned if we're going to play in the pocket, that's Timmy and Tommy. That's not what JRP's strength is going to be, right? So it depends on what Hinshaw's offense is going to look like, what he wants to do. But I mean, he flatly said that favors Timmy and Tommy playing in the pocket, making reads, being a true quarterback. Obviously it sounds like what he's saying is JRP is probably the best athlete out there and can out athlete anybody, which is kind of why he's there. Also interesting, and we didn't get a chance to follow up. His connection got bad, Trace, but he mentioned the quarterbacks not having a lot of individual sessions during practice because of the way Malzahn runs. I thought that was interesting to commentary. I would love to learn more about what that really means, how that manifests. But I think a lot of really interesting nuggets in a very short amount of time from Baylen.
Yeah, and as he said, does he make the big splash announcement that he's coming back in 2023 to back up Thomas or Timmy or, quarterback not yet on campus, right? Does he do that if he doesn't think he's going to have the job? So going to be interesting. And, baseball's right around the corner, and no doubt we'll have opportunity to speak with John Rice Plumlee as well, Greg Lovelady, about this splitting time still being worked out between Greg Lovelady and his staff and trainers and Coach Malzahn and his staff. And going to be interesting to see how that timeshare plays out over the baseball season into spring camp. It was great meeting so many folks at the Hula Bowl this past weekend, especially a lot of those folks that won tickets in our giveaway. Gave away some of that Colton Boomer merch to a couple of fans that won that. Congratulations to Ryan Swoboda, offensive lineman. He officially named today to the NFLPA Bowl roster. He was originally going to be a part of the Hula Bowl, but heard that he may have opportunity at NFLPA, so good luck to him in that game. Basketball, week off basically following the loss at Tulane, 77-69, Ty Freeman with 22 points. Interesting now, the Knights with a War on I-4 game Saturday in Tampa, high noon. Knights lead the War on I-4 24-6, and then that big game with Houston. I can't look ahead to that, coming in possibly the number one team in the country when they come in next Wednesday. Let's talk a little hoops with our reporter, Leo Rodriguez, who joins us now on Suns Live. Oh, boy. Oh, my God. Well, I knew this without even having
Leo. The run was started.
Yeah. By the way, do you agree that Daniel Jones is the best quarterback right now of the remaining quarterbacks in the playoffs?
I think there are other quarterbacks on another level right now, but Danny Dimes is doing his thing. You got to give it to him. You got to give him props. He's really coming up right now. So, yeah, I'm gonna just leave it at that.
All right. When we left that thrilling game, the double overtime win for the Knights over Memphis, I got to tell you, I just didn't see them turning around, hitting the road to a talented Tulane team and getting the win. And you were watching it. They certainly buried themselves early.
Yeah, that Tulane game has to be the first game of the season where we completely, I would say, threw away. That out of the 5 losses we've had, that Tulane game is probably the most inexcusable one. Obviously, the other losses come very close. Miami, UNC Asheville, double overtime. But that Tulane game, the execution offensively was very poor. Obviously, we have injuries that we know of, and I don't know what goes into I don't know if it's the players. I don't know if it's coaching, but you start to see when players kind of just jacking up shots for no reason. In my opinion, from what I see, I'm gonna be very stern with the performance on Saturday because I didn't like it at all. I don't know how you go in a Tulane game like that and not come out with a W because Tulane, yes, they've gone, I guess, quality wins over Memphis and whatnot, but I didn't see us losing that game at all.
Leo, media availability with head coach Johnny Dawkins Friday at 11. Begin with, I didn't like what I saw at all.
You know what?
Begin with that. Let's see
what
kind of soundbite.
Before the season ends, I have to ask him a question where, it's a little, touchy subject.
Wait until the last opportunity you have, not,
exactly.
Your credential here.
I don't have to, exactly, see him again. But no, I'd really like to ask him a question that's a little provocative, in the coming game. So
JP Gilbert, DM him. He, ask him if he has any advice on some questions. Ask Johnny where he was on November 22nd, 1963.
Leo's looking to go viral. Leo, we saw Ty Freeman, another big game against Tulane. Afterwards, I think we all heard something I hadn't known before, which was he was still battling a concussion from the beginning of the year, still wasn't feeling great. Pumped in 22 points against Tulane, had a really big game, obviously the game before against Memphis. It appears he's got to get on the court, right? I know we have some guys injured right now. Who do you take minutes away from to give him to Ty Freeman? If you're Johnny Dawkins, and you can ask yourself a provocative question, whose minutes do you cut to try to get more time for Ty Freeman?
So you're talking about players that are healthy right now, or fully healthy?
When we're fully stocked. I mean, I think we know DJ will be back soon. Obviously, we know CJ's out. Michael Durr's going to be out for a while. So whose minutes do you kind of chop up to get some time for Ty Freeman?
I think DJ's too important when he comes back. At the 2 spot, I like Kelly there. Hendricks is obviously a lock. You know, I've seen Dawkins go to a small lineup before, and I like it. I think they've done a good job for, having small players under, maybe 6'10". All of them have been doing a good job rebounding the ball. And I think that Ty Freeman can possibly take over Durr's spot because, yes, Durr is a big, but he almost doesn't offer anything on the offensive end sometimes.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to get the offense going. So I think Ty Freeman could, go into like the 3 spot and then move Hendricks to the 5, because I've seen him start there before, and that's what he's been kind of running the last 5 games. Coach Dawkins has. So I would put Ty Freeman in there for Durr, and we'll run a DJ, CJ Kelly, Hendricks, Ty Freeman, and I'm forgetting somebody else.
Probably Horton, right? Ithiel Horton.
And Horton, yeah. So those 5 players I can't believe I forgot one of our most important offensive players. But yes, those 5 players on the court at the same time is important to get our offense going.
Yeah, no, Brandon Suggs and Memphis, this was kind of, I guess, under the radar. I mean, 6'6" Brandon Suggs was guarding their 6'10" center for a period of time, right? And held his own. Obviously, it's tough to guard somebody, who's got 4 or 5 inches on you, but he held his own. So I agree. I'd like to see Johnny get more creative, play a little bit more small ball. I don't think Lahat Shun is the answer. I know he's a big body. I know he can rebound a little bit, but I'd like to see him go a little bit small ball and get some more energy in Ty Freeman than
absolutely.
Shun, at least my opinion.
Yeah, and it's been working. I think that they've been crashing the boards pretty good. It'd be concerning if, they were getting out rebounded every game, but even without Durr out there, they look pretty good to me. So I would put Ty Freeman in there. I think he's got the quality to be a starter on the team. And like I said on my article, if not, he's definitely got to be a 6th man. So get him some minutes off the bench, get him some heavy minutes, and get, Hendricks some rest, kind of rotate like that. But that's what I think.
Leo, the offense looked explosive on Sunday. What was your Urban Nooks take it to the house moment of the game? Which touchdown was your favorite? Was it the Saquon 28-yard run at the beginning? Was it the Isaiah Hodgins touchdown, the Bellinger touchdown, or the Saquon one to win it?
I'll tell you what, that post route to Hodgins, I have not seen a pass like that from the Giants to score a touchdown in a minute. So I'm going to go ahead and say that Hodgins touchdown. But man, they were all great. I mean, I did not expect it. I said we keep it under, 30 points, and we scored 31 points. So I'm very excited to see what, the offense has to offer against Philadelphia.
That's 2 of the last 3 weeks over 30 points. I think they went like 4 years without scoring over 30 points.
Yeah.
And now the offense is humming.
Yeah, and when I saw it was against the Colts the first time, I was like, I can't believe I'm watching this. I haven't seen a Giants game that's gone over 30 points in that long. And man, it made me hate Judge and who was our other one?
Pat Shurmur was the worst.
Pat Shurmur. Oh. Pat Shurmur and Judge were just awful.
They're on McAdoo.
Catch more of Leo and Mike in the Sons of the New York Football Giants on the YouTube channel, and they're exclusive that will follow this game. Leo, let's wrap up with this. UCF played arguably their worst game of last season in Tampa, and just terrible game. Got blown out. Warren I 4 points at stake here. Coming up in a week, they've got Houston, which they played very tough in Houston, but they can't take this Cows team lightly. 1-5 in league play, 8-11 overall. What would you say? What do you want to see from the Knights that are going to give you a good feeling early on that they'll leave Tampa and get back on that bus on I-4 with a win?
One word: efficiency. They have to get back on track with being efficient on offense. That, shooting the ball and they get good looks and they're not falling. That's great. You can bring that to the press conference all you want, I got good looks at what? No. You know why I don't buy that? Because I always see the Knights UCF always come back on, 9-0 runs, 10-0 runs, and they make it a game. So why don't you play with that urgency from the very beginning? Play with that urgency from the very beginning of the game. Be efficient like you are in those runs coming back from behind. So from the very beginning on Saturday, I'd want to see them, start clean offensively, making their buckets, try to shoot 50% for the game if I were them.
There you go. Leo Rodriguez. You can catch his articles on twonightsmedia.com and his wraps of games.
Leo, I'm having a party Saturday night. You coming down?
Saturday night?
Yeah.
Oh, premature. I thought, not this Saturday, but if we make the NFC Championship, I'm out. I'm down there.
All right, cool. I'm having one next Sunday too.
Awesome.
He's planning ahead. Thank you, Leo.
It's going to be a bummer when the Eagles and play the Niners.
Yeah, this is all going to go away when it's the Eagles. All right, see you, Leo.
All right, guys.
Yeah.
All right, and in my inbox, I haven't sent it to you yet, Adam, John Weiss's preview of Saturday's game. I'll
Can't wait.
to you, so you can throw that
Always
up
good
on
articles.
Media.
Always
Yeah, John
good.
does his homework. He's a little witty, and he's got some factoids in there that I enjoy. Around the kingdom, before we open the mailbag, women's basketball lost 64-50 to Tulane. Now 1-4 in league, 10-7 overall. Knights led at half. They unravel in a lot of these games in the second half. They play at a talented USF team Sunday at 2:00. Warren I 4 points up for grabs there. With the way the women have been playing, and South Florida is pretty good in women's basketball, you could see them getting swept there. So the men are going to need to sweep to balance out those points. And softball ranked 15th preseason by D1softball.com and picked first in the AAC by the league's coaches. Just around the corner, media day for softball and the season. Everything's getting closer there. All right, mailbag time.
All right, we're going back to the original.
It's that time again. Let's open the Brian W. Peterson Sons of UCF mailbag.
At Free Sport Travel. 2022 American football schedule didn't come out. Does the 2023 Big 12 schedule come out before or after? Oh, okay. 2022 schedule for AAC didn't come out until February 17th. Does the Big 12 schedule come out before or after that date this year? That's your over-under. February 17th.
I was told there'd be no math.
Before. We're going to get it before. We'll talk about it in 2 weeks. I'm going to hold with that. Brian's question. Who got the better trade, in quotes, between UCF and Fresno State? Mikey Keene going to Fresno State. By the way, funny seeing him shout out to Bulldog Nation on social media as he's now in Fresno. Or Bulla Schmidt, the center who's transferring into UCF. It's too early. Too early for this, but I'd say UCF because Bulla Schmidt's going to play.
Yeah, plus he's a big, giant, large human being. Again, not too many of those walking the planet. So if he's good, he will be a dominant force. Where, to your point, Mikey might not be in the field.
Yeah, Mike, rock solid Dennis, who has a better 2023 season, year one, Dion at Colorado, or year three, Gus at UCF.
I gotta say, Gus, have you seen Colorado's schedule? They open at a conference with TCU. It's his first game. Then they play Nebraska, which I know they stink for a long time. There's somebody else decent at a conference. Oh, no, it was Colorado State. And then they have, teams like USC and Utah to end the year. They got 4, 5, 6 easy losses there. Gus, he's got to do something in the out of conference. You got to win those 3. And then you win 4 or 5 games in conference and you have a better year.
Black Gold Guido asked a series of questions over the week about transfer portal. So he says transfer portal rankings about 65th right now for UCF. Which is more important, that transfer portal ranking or, recruiting more of the high school kids? And are you concerned about a transfer portal ranking at 65th?
I'm not. I think we've all known rankings in general don't necessarily hold a lot of weight. I think this year UCF is recruiting to need versus taking, the best players out there, right? I saw today Ole Miss took 2 quarterbacks when they already had a quarterback, right? So their ranking will probably be higher because they took a 4- and 5-star quarterback, but all 3 of them can't play at the same time as far as I know, but I guess Lane Kiffin can figure that out. I think UCF is probably getting positions of need where a Bullish Schmidt's probably not a 4-star center. I don't think a lot of those are out there. So I'm not too concerned about the rankings. I do think you need a good mix and balance though between portal and high school guys. I think if you rely too heavily on either, you're probably going to get left to the curb. So I think you have to strike a happy medium between the two.
Mike, at Spurs Unite, what's still the biggest area of need to fill through the portal or recruiting?
It's always going to be offensive line, I think. I think we can find receivers anytime. We've never had a problem with that.
We seem to have no problem. Just keep reeling in wide receivers.
Yeah. Running backs, same thing. Even quarterbacks, we'll find somebody to play with us. But offensive line going into the Big 12, that's going to be a big issue.
Hard-hitting question from Andy at UCF XOS. What's your favorite rom-com? Which if you could have been on the pre-show at 5 till, we were going through the top 100 rom-coms.
I had to look these up. I don't know what qualifies as a rom-com. I found a list of shows that I thought qualified, and I saw something about Mary on there. I'm going to go with that one all day.
That's a great one. Another one that I love, The 40-Year-Old Virgin, which probably describes a lot of you guys watching this show right now.
There we go.
Yeah, I don't have a favorite, Andy. Andy, what was your favorite? I didn't follow your.
I think you love 10 Things I Hate About You or 10 Ways to Lose a Guy. One of those, some with a 10 in it.
Gotcha. At @blackgold_Ed, if you guys were hosting an offensive line recruit on a visit to Orlando, where would you take him to eat? What did JRP say in that walk around with Adam?
JRP is going to PDQ. I'm taking these guys to Texas de Brazil. I want to see how much steak they can put down. The more you eat, the better lineman you're going to be.
That's a good one. Yeah, you keep the card on green the whole night and just
there you go.
Have the meat sweats all day the next day. It's got to be some kind of buffet or something. You're talking about an O lineman, something they can eat as much as possible. I don't know. Is there Golden Corral? I don't even know what's in Orlando.
Golden Corral.
I have no idea what's in. Nice. When I was in Orlando, it was Fazoli's, and we go there unlimited breadsticks, so you could put away the most breadsticks. I don't think that exists anymore.
The cow's called. They want the recruiting strategy back. I'm like, geez.
I have no idea what's in Orlando.
Earlier, you said the most important position was offensive lineman. You're not getting any of these offensive line recruits if you take them to Golden Corral. At 2 letters, 2 words, Robert, if you describe Gus's tenure at UCF so far using only a movie title, what movie title would you use?
The Longest Yard.
You claimed this in the pre-show.
The Longest Yard is my answer.
He had the dibs.
I'm going Groundhog Day. It was the same thing this year as it was last year, right? We had a couple of nice wins, a big win against the Gators, a big win against Cincinnati, a loss to the Navy last year, and loss to Navy again this year. It was basically the same season over again, maybe with some wins mixed up in order.
I did no homework, Robert. I did not research this, so I do not weigh in. At Golden Knight _2, for any sport, what teams do you vividly hate UCF losing to? This seems easy. Alternatively, which teams are you most satisfied to beat? Same answer, Cows. Cows until that rivalry comes to an end.
It depends on the sport. Cows is the easy answer. If you take the Cows off the table, right, since we're not playing them anyway, we have new opponents. I don't know. I always enjoy the last couple of years, obviously, beating Cincinnati in football. I think that's obviously a good thing. Hasn't happened all that often. Basketball-wise, I like beating Memphis. Memphis always kind of gives us trouble, so I do like the recent win against Memphis. So I'll play the recency bias card and say Cincy and Memphis.
Yeah, to me, it's always the Cows. I mean, that's the one. I can't go to bed at night after losing to the Cows in any sport, especially football. And if we lose to them in basketball on Saturday, it's going to upset me all the way up to kickoff of 8:15 Giants-Eagles. I have the two of the teams I hate most in all of sports on the same day. Anybody wearing green on Saturday is going to be in trouble.
At Rejoice Nights, which UCF team are you most excited about watching now that football season is over? Men's, women's basketball, baseball, softball, or something else? For the moment, it's still men's basketball, but I am looking forward to seeing what softball can do. You saw the early preseason projections, and I am interested in seeing what John Rice Plumlee brings to baseball. So I'm kind of wishy-washy over that. But for right now, men's basketball.
Yeah, right now men's basketball. I think there's a lot of positive press and preview on the baseball team. I'm curious to see if Lovelady can finally put it all together. A lot of publications, D1 is saying we have a really good chance this year. So can we finally put it together, or will we be soft tissue injury you again?
Basketball. I mean, basketball has a huge game next week against the #1 team in the country. They've had some big wins. are talking about going to the big dance for the first time in a few years. If you're not excited about that, then I don't know what you're doing.
And Ethan of 126 mentioning a headline: Orlando Airport earns worst airport status. I believe it was about flight delays, and not just recently because of the Southwest debacle. Do you agree with this assessment? And if not, what's the worst airport? I think Orlando's airport's highly overrated. I think they don't care because they know everybody's coming here, so they don't have to roll out the red carpet. But I've never had a good experience in Dulles or O'Hare. LaGuardia is always a mess. So there's a lot of bad ones, actually.
I've always hated LAX. Something about LAX. It's always under construction. You can't go certain ways. It's just a big maze. I also don't like those airports where I got to land and it takes some sort of a vessel to get to my next terminal.
Dulles is like a people mover.
I don't need to get on a second mode of transportation when I'm already trying to get on a first mode of transportation. Let's just stick to one at a time here, people.
My wife's been terrified of flying forever. Really, in the last 2 years, we started traveling more. I haven't been to that many airports to really tell you which ones are really that good or that bad.
At Two Doctors Dad, announcers keep mentioning Tyler Hendricks has not played. He's redshirting? It was the question. And football allows 4 games. What's basketball? Adam, do you know this? It's more than 4. I think it's somewhere between 6 and 8, right?
I do think it's 6. I saw we just got a transfer today from Indiana in women's basketball who played 6 games. So that seems to be the number sticking in my head. But I do believe he's redshirting this season. I think they want to get a little muscle on the kid, get a little more experience under his belt. So I know he's redshirting this year.
At Devin Swage, nice to meet you, Devin, at the Hula Bowl and your friends. How are we supposed to go all in on this year's basketball team when they're beating Memphis in double overtime but following up with an 8-point loss to the Green Wave? I will say this, that they can't stumble in Tampa, especially knowing Houston's coming to town, which should be a rocking atmosphere at the arena. You can't stumble in Tampa.
No,
got to keep the hope, unfortunately.
Faith. I don't know how you do it. It's a game-to-game basis, and you just got to come. Everything that's happened up to now, just throw it out the window. And from now, you just got to take the season from here to the end.
So on that point, at Patrick Nurse FTW, which men's basketball team shows up on Saturday? I will say I don't want to make excuses for the injuries, but some of those injuries are, they are impactful, obviously. But the team that shows up got to leave Tampa with a win, or hot seat Johnny talk's going to start up again.
Well, as you mentioned, there's availability with Dawkins tomorrow. I'd love to know the status of Darius Johnson. Is he going to be back and playing? I think that's a big cog in this one. So need to know the injury situation. Again, losing Michael Durr, Leo said it perfectly. He was not an offensive force by any stretch, but he rebounded the ball pretty well. He was at least a rim protector in some respects. Losing him from the rotation is going to change some stuff around. Some new guys are going to have to play. This is where CJ Walker being out also hurts. Another sort of big body athletic guy down the post. So what do you do to counteract that? That's going to be a problem. But I need to know if DJ's back. I think that's a big key for UCF. Mike,
hard-hitting one from Jamie Brooks. You stole my Jesus fish, didn't you? That was the question.
I have no idea what that means. I asked you that in the before we started the show. Is an inside joke I'm missing here?
I don't know, but when I throw out they ask anything, which I stopped doing because JP just literally.
Hold on, you two don't clearly know that's a Seinfeld reference?
You stole my Jesus fish. Which episode was that?
Puddy had it on the back of his car, and he was like, "You took my Jesus fish."
Okay, all right, yeah.
We're taking it too literally, and I'm the one throwing out Seinfeld trivia every morning too. At CapVeej1, you're on death row. Your time has come. What's your last meal?
I want to know how it got to death row.
Golden
first.
Corral. Mike wants Golden Corral. What's the Big Fat East roll?
I don't think I've ever even been to Golden Corral, to be honest. Maybe once.
You've been to Golden Corral. I know you have.
You want Fazoli breadsticks. You want them unlimitedly so that you can stave off the execution. Keep
for the Suns Plus show, Mike and I and our roommates went to Fazoli's. I want to say, I'm not even joking, 40-ish days in a row, somewhere in that ballpark, every day for lunch.
Breadsticks I put down.
Why did that business model not work? $4.99. You can eat Boston breadsticks.
Used to get it al dente. I want to know why I'm in death row A, but B, I don't really know what to do here. The first thing that came to my mind when I read this question, which was about 10 minutes ago, was Zinger Mountain Melt from Ale House. I don't know. Give me the Zinger Mountain Melt.
Ooh, yeah, this is a tough one. I eat everything, but I love a good dessert too. So maybe a nice banana split or something on the way out.
Just a dessert? No.
Oh yeah, I gotta have a full meal too. I don't know what it would be though. There's too many options to pick from. Maybe some pasta.
Yeah, put me down for lasagna, toasted ravioli. Throw me all the Italian food. Keep
Cheers.
that going. All right, guys. It's been fun. Adam, welcome back. Glad you made it in time for the show. Jan messaged me, said, "Are you getting ready for the live show?" I go, I don't know if Adam's back yet. I'm hoping, that he's
I didn't even know he was still gone, so I was showing up. Thanks for telling me.
I kind of wish I wasn't here now to see what you two would have done. Would have been great.
We had no plan B. I do recall you mentioning this to us last week, and I said, I'm going to need a tutorial on how to run the show. And then
once I realized I thought my travel was going to align perfectly and I'd be back, I did not prepare the plan B. I had the faith in the air travel system to get me to and fro in the time I needed to. If not, it'd been you, Mike, and Leo talking Giants. And so you're on your own, Chris.
Because we would have just been in the chat room together. We would have been.
That may have been just as entertaining if I'm being honest here.
Yeah, we didn't put out a show this week, a podcast this week. Adam texted me on Monday. He said, "Hey, you want to skip this week?" I said, "Hey, I'm ready to do a Giants podcast right now." And he elected to pass on it. So
I did elect
to
pass on that. Yeah. The Giants never want to. I love Mike to death. Mike's a great friend of mine. I have two other great friends who are Giants fans, and they're in my text all weekend. Have the Giants never won a playoff game before? Like, you people act like this has never happened. It's one game.
It's been a while.
I mean, oh my goodness.
Has it been since 1992 on the road?
Yeah, and what very good question, Trace.
Adam should be celebrating the Cowboys more. Look,
I know what to do here. I've been here before. This is not a drill. This is hopes up.
That's
we're gonna get big Brock Bleep out in San Francisco.
Are you confident? You said Brady was going to do the same thing to you last week. Last week, you sat at home miserable, thinking Brady's going to kick my ass. And I enjoyed the whole week leading up to the Vikings, just like I'm enjoying this week. And if we lose, we lose. But I'm at least positive. This whole week, you're talking about San Francisco's going to kick your ass. And then when they do, then you'll. But wait for it to happen first.
Adam, what's your confidence factor with the Cowboys going on the road? I just think at some point somebody figures out Brock Purdy, that he can't keep this roll going.
The Giants.
San Francisco's pretty tough.
Well, here's the problem. A lot of people have figured out Dak Prescott, and that's
he had a great game Monday. He had a great game.
Is Tampa's defense just that bad? That's what I don't know.
He really had a lot of good passes in that game.
To wide open people. Like there were some pretty easy throws that Dak can make. Robert had in the chat earlier. He had 15 interceptions in 12 games. The Niners defense is way more formidable than the Buccaneers defense. That's what has me concerned. I do agree at some point Brock Purdy has to come back down to earth. But if his only role is to hand the ball off to Deebo Samuels and Christian McCaffrey, he may be able to figure that out. I don't know.
Just don't let it come down to a kick. Right?
We're gonna be good. I think Maher's figured it out. I think we're good with him, but that was
unbelievable. Though. As it was moving along, were you rooting for him to miss just so you could see some level of history?
I stayed awake just until he made one. As soon as he made that one extra point, I went to bed. But for everybody here watching, you got to be rooting Giants Cowboys next week. Imagine this podcast next week if we have that matchup.
I'll take that. That's at home for the Cowboys, so I will take the. Although I don't think we're any better at home though.
Let's go to the game and we'll stay at Robert's house.
There you go.
Okay. All right. Let me check my schedule. We can work that out.
There's a plan. I like it. All right. I want to thank Baylen Carrillo.
Trace, hold on. Trace, you coming with us?
Next weekend. Probably not.
He wants to go to Ames, Iowa, but he doesn't want to go to the
I want to go to
Giants Cowboys.
Lubbock. He said Lubbock.
How far is Lubbock from Dallas?
Not far enough, in my opinion.
I just want to look at the Prairie Dogs of Mike holding a craft beer. That's all I'm asking.
I don't even know what the hell a Prairie Dog looks like.
I'm not planning to be in Dallas for that, but we'll see.
Neither am I, by the way, because I don't think we're gonna win that one.
I want to thank Baylen Carrillo for joining us as well. Leo, Adam, and Mike, of course, as well, and all of you. Thanks for being with us on this week's Sons of UCF Live. I'm Trace Strolko. Go Knights, everyone.
Go G-Man!
Georgia, I do have a player, Trace, the same one I have the last three.
My name is Destiny Thomas, and thanks for watching the Sons of UCF.
I forgot to update that. So
a lot
Destiny
of exposure.
Thomas is our new goodbye person.
Everyone.
Goodbye.